enjoyed that. We're running a bit behind, you may have noticed. So we're gonna have a very quick panel discussion. Unfortunately, obviously, Jamie isn't here to answer any questions, but she has kindly agreed to share her contact details. So I'll leave this up on the screen. If anyone wants to follow up and ask her any questions about the volunteer programme, then she'd be really happy to hear from you. Great. Okay, so I think I will start with Amy, if that's all right. Thank you, Dan. So Amy, just could you at first give us a brief overview of your employment history and your role at Cafe?
Yes, of course I can. I was 15 years working as a civil servant prior to joining Cafe, and then the opportunity came about nearly 3 years ago to join Cafe, which was a massive opportunity for me that I couldn't really refuse. It combined both of my real passions in life, which is accessibility and the improvement around that area, and also, as Diana's let everybody know, I'm a huge football fan, so it was basically like a dream chance for me to work in both sectors. To take on the job, though, it meant a relocation for me from Liverpool down to London, which was, although daunting, it's been probably the best thing I've ever done, to be honest with you. It is difficult at times, and I'm not going to lie by saying it's been easy at times, but Cafe have been brilliant with me. If there's any problems, you can always know that you can go and speak to any of the team, and they're there to help and offer support, which is a massive relief for me. I've got a support network round by where I live, which is a great help to know that there's people that are near to me if I need them in an emergency situation or anything like that. We employ flexible working if I need to, so if there's difficulties with transport issues where the tubes are off, or due to the weather I can't really get out safely or something, it's not a problem for me to work from home, because I've still got the contact with the office via Skype, via email, via phone. So it's been massive, and also given me the opportunity to now I liaise with fans, clubs and NGOs on a regular basis. Also undertake access appraisals at stadiums across Europe, maybe in the future beyond Europe, which involves a lot of travelling, being here, and going to other NGO events and presenting there. So it's been no word of a lie, a life-changing experience to do this, and one that I've not regretted.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. You mentioned that you travel a lot with work, obviously, I know.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, when you do travel, do organisers of the events you're attending, do they tend to request any additional requirements? And if so, do they respond to it appropriately? What's your experience?
Yes, in some cases, no. In some cases, we had an example from, I think, last year, where we went to an event, and it was only when we arrived the night before I was due to give a presentation that it was realised that there was stepped access to the stage, and I hadn't been notified of this prior to the arrival. So, and by the time they realised there was no alternative way around it apart from being lifted onto the stage, which in the end wasn't too bad a situation to get in, but if we'd have been asked prior to that, we could have looked into an alternative way, or maybe moved the venue to another room within the main venue where we were having that. So it's something that organisers should be a bit more aware of, that they may have a guest attending either as a delegate themselves or just as a visitor, that they need to ask in advance of any specific access requirements, which no one will mind sharing with them if it helps them to make their environment better once they're there. But the main thing now is that we try in advance to contact the event organiser and explain the situation to them and the specific needs that I will have when attending events. And the earlier in advance that we can do this, it's usually no problem then once they know. So it's important that a point of contact is given. in advance, and then say usually the main one is around transport from the airport to the venue or to the hotel that they provide. So if in advance I explain to them that I'm a wheelchair user, may need to have wheelchair accessible vehicles to take me to and from the airport. Every time that I've let them know in advance, vehicles are being supplied that may not be perfectly wheelchair accessible, but with a little bit of help from the colleagues, including being shoved into a taxi once, it means that it's fine and I can go to any event that Cafe wish me to go to with no problems.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Diane, I wanted to ask you what your opinion is on targeted initiatives that are, for instance, if an organisation creates a job role with the main purpose of employing a disabled person, what your opinion is on these sorts of initiatives and how an organisation can transition from such a targeted initiative to kind of longer term changes which create comprehensive and a sustained inclusive environment.
Thank you for that. I think what we would generally say is it's much better to have an inclusive process where you are genuinely welcoming of any candidate and all candidates, and including disabled candidates. I should say, note on terminology, in the UK, disabled person is the preferred terminology rather than persons with disabilities, so forgive me for using that by default. That said, there can be instances where having a targeted programme is appropriate if an organisation has identified that a particular part of the group is falling out of the process at some point. And as an example, one of the tech organisations we work with, they needed to attract candidates with autism because I know it's a bit of a cliche, but to work in their technology field. And they realised that candidates with autism were not getting through the process. And so they put in a targeted recruitment drive to attract candidates with autism. And they found that 50% of the candidates who successfully came through that had previously applied to that organisation and been unsuccessful because the recruitment process wasn't inclusive. So that's a really good example of where it was worth them doing it because they needed that talent pool. And then the important next step is to say, how can we actually remove those barriers so that in future candidates with autism will not fall out of our mainstream programme, and equally then it should mean that it's easier for everyone. So one of our key messages really is that if you get it right for disabled people, generally speaking, you get it right for everyone. And so in the case of recruitment, looking at where people for whatever reason are falling out of the process and removing that barrier for everyone should mean that you get a better process, a more inclusive pool of candidates, and removing the need for targeted initiatives specifically.
Thank you very much. And then a question for Jose. Thank you. We've heard very convincing arguments from all of you on stage about why it's so beneficial to both the disabled person and the employee to hire disabled people. So I wanted to ask, and it's quite a big question, and I'm sorry, but why are there not more disabled people already employed in football?
So thank you, Esther. So I think this is a step-by-step process. I think the good news here is that the things are starting to change, and I think more and more football organizations and organizations in general are realizing the importance and the value that is to have disabled people working with them, working in their organizations. I think that here, a thing that will help a lot in future is that more and more we have like role models, and this is not only a name of our program. We hope that our students, our participants in future can be role models in this area, but also because I think that that role models, like by seeing a disabled person working in a football club or in an FA or in a football organization, people start opening their eyes and see, oh, this person not only can work in a football club or a football organization, is more than prepared for it, and it takes a lot of value to this organization because I can assure that even in this room we have a lot of people with a lot of value and totally prepared to work in with a big passion for football and totally prepared to work in football, and then I think that that's important. Programs like not only like programs like ours that train the people to be prepared to work in football, but also like programs and more campaigns even that are focused in awareness. And I think here, for example, a campaign that was really interesting in this area, even if not only focused in disability, was the Captains of Change that UEFA made some years ago, and that was really like really impactful, like, because these people, like these campaigns, more take the examples, the role models to the people, and then this helps a lot to open conscience and to open the eyes of the people for the value and the treasure that is here. So.
Thank you very much. I think we have maybe time for one very quick question from the floor, if there is one. Yeah, I think there's some at the back there. And could you please specify who the question is to?
Hi, it's Kush. Sorry, this wasn't a question, it was a quick statement. Just in relation to building the business case for disability. So the disability market in the UK is worth £250 billion sterling, and the global market is worth $8 trillion, if that includes friends and family. So I just wanted to state that, because I think it's them two statistics are very important.
Thank you very much, Kush. Perfect. Is there another question? Anywhere? No? I think maybe everyone's hungry. In which case, thank you again to everyone on stage. It's been really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much. And now we'll bring on Joanna Deagle for the closing speech. Thank you.